What if the very thing you thought was your greatest strength was actually what's holding you back the most? Picture this: an expert, someone who knows their field inside out, a world-class surgeon, a seasoned software engineer, a successful entrepreneur. Now picture a beginner, clueless, asking dumb questions, making silly mistakes. Which one is more likely to spark innovation? If you're betting on the expert, this video might shake up everything you thought you knew. Because here's one of the most overlooked truths about innovation: expertise can become a trap. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Mastery. We spend years learning, practicing, refining. We collect degrees, accolades, and habits that make us efficient. Eventually, we reach a point where we think, "I've got this, I know what I'm doing." But what if that feeling, that sense of mastery, is a beautifully wrapped illusion? What if it's the very thing holding you back? The moment we become good at something, our brain starts doing something dangerous. It stops asking questions. Slowly, without realizing it, we start building mental shortcuts. We accept routines. We rely on rules. We start saying things like, "That's just how it's done." And that's the moment we stop thinking freely. What we call expertise often becomes mental autopilot. Imagine you have a toolbox. Inside is a hammer you've mastered using. You know it so well that now every problem looks like a nail. You don't even bother looking for the saw, the wrench, or the drill anymore. Your toolbox didn't shrink, your thinking did. Psychologist Carl Dunker gave this a name back in 1945: functional fixedness. It's when your knowledge of an object, or a tool, or a method becomes so fixed that you literally can't imagine using it any other way. You no longer see what something could be. You only see what you expect to see. A classic example, Dunker's candle problem. In his famous experiment, Dunker gave people a candle, a box of thumbtacks, and a book of matches. The task? Attach the candle to the wall so it doesn't drip wax on the floor. Most people tried sticking the candle directly to the wall with tacks. It didn't work. Why? Because they were stuck using the tools the way they'd always had. The solution? Empty the box of tacks, tack the box to the wall, and place the candle inside. The box wasn't just a container, it was part of the solution. The participants didn't fail because they lacked intelligence. They failed because they were too familiar. Their brain had already labeled the box as a container and nothing else. And that right there is what happens when we become experts. Why this is dangerous in real life? When you're a beginner, you're still exploring. You're allowed to be messy. You try things that don't make sense, and in the chaos, sometimes you stumble on genius. But once you're an expert, you stop experimenting. You execute, you perform, you repeat what's worked before, even if the context has totally changed. It's like a chef who's been cooking the same recipe for 10 years. While ingredients evolve, tastes shift, and the tools in the kitchen change. He's still doing it right, but he's not growing. Take 20 seconds right now. Open your Notes app. Write down one area of your life or work where you feel like, "I know what I'm doing." Now ask yourself, what's one thing in that area that you've never questioned? Then ask, what if that thing was totally wrong or just outdated? Share it in the comments. You'll be shocked how much opens up when you start challenging what you thought was certain. Becoming aware of what you take for granted. Here's the paradox. The more experienced you are, the more deliberate you have to be about staying open, because your brain wants to default to "I know." But mastery isn't about knowing, it's about seeing with fresh eyes. You have to unlearn your habits, even if they've brought you success. You have to look at what you consider obvious as if it were brand new. That's the difference between a professional who slowly fades and a creative who constantly reinvents the game. And that's exactly what we'll explore in the next chapter. Because the beginner's mind, it's not just some spiritual buzzword, it's a weapon. Chapter 2. The Power of Beginner's Mind. There's a quiet kind of wisdom that comes from Zen philosophy, and once you understand it, it changes how you see everything. It's wrapped in a single Japanese word, shoshin, which means beginner's mind. It's not a productivity hack, it's not a coaching trick, it's a mindset built on humility, curiosity, and above all, mental freedom. What beginner's mind really means. In his classic book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki writes, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few." At first glance, it sounds simple, but really think about it. It challenges everything we've been taught since school, that knowledge equals power, that the more you know, the more you're worth, that being a beginner means being weak. But Shoshin flips that narrative. It whispers, what you know may actually be what's limiting you, and that is the real power of beginner's mind. Beginner does not equal ignorant. Let's be clear, having beginner mind doesn't mean pretending to be clueless. It means not getting trapped by what you already know. It's the ability to stay curious, like a kid, even when you're experienced, credentialed, successful. It's asking yourself every single day, if I knew absolutely nothing about this, what would I notice? Take kids, for example. They don't ask, why does a car have 4 wheels? They ask, why not 5? And that's a much better question. Beginner's mind is where breakthroughs are born. Want to know why so many genius creators, visionary entrepreneurs, and game-changing innovators seem to think differently? It's not because they're smarter than you. It's because they intentionally stay in beginner's mind even when they're at the top of their field. They don't rely on habits, they challenge their own methods. They treat truths like hypotheses. And most importantly, they stay open to the weird, the absurd, the unexpected. The brain of a beginner is more alive. This isn't just spiritual philosophy, it's backed by neuroscience too. Studies show that a beginner's brain lights up with more neural activity than an expert's. Why? Because beginners are still exploring. They're still connecting dots. Every time you try something new, your brain releases dopamine, the motivation chemical. You become fully present. You notice more. You experiment, you fail, you adjust. You're alive. And that's where creativity is born, not in repetition, but in exploration. Picture 2 mountain climbers. One is an expert. He's fast, efficient, focused. He's climbed this trail dozens of times. The other is a beginner. He's slower, he makes mistakes, he stops to look around. But in those pauses, he notices things. A hidden path, a shortcut, a new view. He sees what the expert doesn't because the expert is stuck in his routine. So here's the question. Who's more likely to discover something new? The one who knows everything or the one who's still asking questions? The most dangerous sentence in self-growth. Here it is. The single most limiting phrase you can say to yourself. I already know this. The moment that thought pops up, pause. That's your ego shutting the door on learning. Because knowledge doesn't mean growth, especially when it blocks curiosity. And every time you return to beginner's mind, you give your brain fresh oxygen. You start seeing the world again instead of assuming you already understand it. Want to reawaken your beginner's mindset today? Drop this in the comments. I choose not to know it all. And tell us, what area of your life are you ready to see with fresh eyes this week? Beginner's mind is a daily practice. Shoshin isn't something you're born with. It's not a personality trait, it's a discipline. It's about asking simple questions every day, learning something completely new, even if it's tiny, listening to someone you disagree with without preparing a counter-argument, saying, I don't know, and meaning it. Every time you do that, you shift from expert to explorer, from automation to awareness, from reaction to creation. And that's where transformation lives. Let's wrap it up. Beginner's mind is mental freedom. It's how we keep growing, creating, and seeing clearly. And most importantly, it's how we resist the arrogance that often comes with experience. So ask yourself this simple question. If I knew nothing, what would I notice that others miss? That's where real learning begins. And that's where your next breakthrough is waiting. Chapter 3. When Beginners Change the World. Still not convinced that a beginner's mindset is powerful? Let's get real. Here are 3 true stories, not theories, not fluff, of people in companies that shattered the rules because they thought like beginners. 1. Einstein, the power of the right question. You'd think Einstein's genius came from having all the answers, but he once said something that flips that idea completely. If I had 1 hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the right question and 5 minutes solving it. That's beginner's mind. It's not about answers, it's about asking questions no one else is asking. Experts often stop questioning because they think they already know. Beginners, they're not afraid to ask the obvious, the dumb, the weird. And sometimes that's exactly where breakthroughs begin. 2. James Dyson and his 5,126 failures. Most people give up after 3 failed attempts, maybe 10 if they're really stubborn. But you know how many prototypes James Dyson built before he created the vacuum that changed the entire industry? 5,126. 5,126. That's not persistence. That's beginner's mindset on steroids. See, a normal expert would have stopped, would have said, well, this just isn't feasible. But Dyson didn't see failure as a dead end, just feedback. He wasn't boxed in by what was supposed to work. He questioned the fundamentals. He played, he explored, and in doing so, he reinvented the rule book. 3. Netflix, the company that killed itself on purpose. Remember when Netflix used to mail DVDs to your door? That business was thriving, profitable, scalable, familiar. But then, instead of doubling down on what was already working, Netflix did something most companies would never dare to do. They disrupted themselves. They let go of their cash cow and jumped headfirst into streaming, a completely different game. Why? Because they chose to think like beginners. They questioned their own success. They asked, if we started this company today, would we still be doing this? That one question changed everything. And now what? They've reshaped global entertainment. Experts protect the system. Beginners are bold enough to break it. Still watching? That means this idea is landing with you. Hit the like button, not just for the algorithm, but to tell yourself this message matters. And drop a comment. What's one thing you're doing today that could use a beginner's mindset? A habit? A project? A belief? Let's start that conversation below. Chapter 4. When expertise becomes a trap. Here's a tough truth no one talks about. It's not the beginners who miss the revolution. It's the experts. The ones at the top. The seasoned veterans. The ones with years of experience, glowing resumes, and entire teams looking up to them. Ironically, they're often the first to fall behind and the last to realize it. The Innovator's Dilemma. In 1997, Harvard professor Clayton Christensen wrote a book that rocked Silicon Valley, The Innovator's Dilemma. His core idea? Big companies don't fail because they're incompetent. They fail because they're too good at what they do. Their systems are polished, their products sell, their customers are satisfied. So why change? That's the trap. Success becomes a cage. While they keep perfecting what already works, a newcomer shows up. Someone small, scrappy, unproven, but with fresh eyes. And that person breaks the rules, strips away the fluff, sees the opportunity the expert completely missed. Real-world warning signs. Kodak, Blockbuster, Nokia. Familiar names, right? Kodak invented digital photography and buried it to protect film sales. Blockbuster laughed off Netflix when they had the chance to partner. Nokia ruled mobile phones until the iPhone rewrote the game. These aren't isolated failures. They're symptoms of the same mindset, the expert blind spot. And here's the brutal paradox. The more successful you become, the less willing you are to take risks. The less you risk, the more vulnerable you are to someone who does. Let's pause. Be honest with yourself. Is there an area in your life or work where you're afraid to break what's working? Where you've become too comfortable? Drop this in the comments. I'm breaking out of my expert mindset, and share what's starting to feel stuck or stale in your world. Why brilliant people Still miss the shift? Want to know the most dangerous thing about being an expert? It gives you the illusion of security. You feel safe because you've mastered the rules, but over time, you stop questioning them. You go from, how could this be better, to, this is how we've always done it. You stop exploring, you optimize, you maintain, you run your life like a museum. But here's the problem. The world doesn't sit still. It moves, it evolves, it reinvents itself. Case study, BlackBerry. Remember BlackBerry? The phone with the physical keyboard, used by CEOs, governments, a symbol of professionalism. Then in 2007, Apple launches the iPhone. No keyboard, no stylus, just a big touchscreen that felt like a toy. And what did BlackBerry say? That'll never work. Professionals need real keys. Fast forward a few years, BlackBerry became a footnote in tech history. Why? Because they confused expertise with truth. They didn't see the world was changing. They refused to think like beginners. What are you not seeing? Time for some reflection. Ask yourself, where in your life do you feel like you already know enough? Your career, your relationship, your routine? What do you never question anymore? Your tools, your habits, your business model? And what if the breakthrough you're searching for is hiding behind an idea you dismissed as too basic, too naive, too beginner? Sometimes it's not that we lack vision, it's that we're too proud to put on new lenses. Life rule. Expertise creates comfort, but only a beginner's eye brings clarity. Write this in the comments if it speaks to you. I'm ready to see what I've been blind to. And if you're still here, like this video. Not for me, but to affirm that you're the kind of person who stays open, curious, and bold. In the next chapter, we go practical. I'll show you 3 powerful ways to reboot your beginner's mindset starting this week. These aren't vague ideas. They're real exercises to rewire your brain and sharpen your perspective. Because beginner's mind, it's not just a mindset, it's a method. And it works if you work it. Chapter 5. How to reclaim your beginner's mind. 3 practical tools. Okay, so you get the idea. Beginner's mind is powerful. But how do you actually bring it into your life? Starting today. Here are 3 simple but game-changing exercises to reboot your brain and see the world with fresh eyes. 1. Do a beginner's week. Pick one activity you know absolutely nothing about. It could be salsa dancing, coding, writing a poem, baking Indian food, learning to juggle, anything. Then spend the next 7 days exploring it, without judgment or pressure. Watch what happens. Notice how you learn, how you fail, how you're suddenly curious again. This isn't about becoming good, it's about remembering what learning actually feels like. 2. Challenge 3 obvious truths. Every month, choose a topic or area where you feel like an expert, your job, your beliefs, your routines. Then write down 3 things you consider obvious or normal, and ask yourself, what if that wasn't true? Most of the time, we don't need more information. We just need to question the assumptions we've stopped seeing. 3. Use the 5 whys technique. Take any belief or habit you hold. Now ask yourself, why? And once you answer, ask again. 5 times. Yes, it'll feel annoying. Yes, it'll get uncomfortable. But that's how you get past surface thinking and uncover what's really driving you. That's how you start thinking like a creator, not just a consumer. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And let me know in the comments which of these 3 tools will you try this week. Final chapter, the message to remember. The paradox of innovation is this: the more you know, the more you need to unlearn. Expertise is useful, but only if you don't let it harden into arrogance. Growth doesn't come from what you already know, it comes from what you're still willing to question. So next time your brain says, yeah, I've heard this before, try asking, what if I knew nothing at all? Because that's where the magic begins. That's where creativity comes back. That's where transformation lives. If this video sparked something in you, do this. Like the video to tell yourself this message matters. Comment and tell us what part of your life needs a fresh perspective this week. Share it with someone who's stuck in expert mode and needs to hear this. Subscribe and hit the bell to join this community of learners, thinkers, and freedom seekers. We're not here to be perfect. We're here to evolve together. Thanks for spending this time with me, and remember, you don't need to be an expert to change your life. You just need the courage to begin again.